Now, in the U.S., the battle between President Donald Trump and Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is heating up. Powell says that the Department of Justice has issued grand jury subpoenas to the Federal Reserve, threatening a possible criminal indictment linked to his congressional testimony last June. The probe has led to criticism from former Fed chairs, economists, and lawmakers. Powell said that the testimony focused on the multi-year renovation of the Fed's historic headquarters, which is described as necessary infrastructure upgrades, calling the legal action a pretext. Powell said it represents a dramatic escalation in pressure on the central bank.
The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president.
Powell has warned that legal threats tied to monetary policy decisions risk undermining the Federal Reserve's independence, which is a cornerstone of U.S. economic stability. Now, critics say that any attempt to intimidate or remove the Fed chair over interest rate decisions could weaken investor confidence and politicize U.S. monetary policy. The dispute now raises broader questions about the balance of power between the White House, the Justice Department, and the independent central bank. Now, every living former chair of the Federal Reserve has condemned the criminal investigation into Fed Chair Powell, calling it an unprecedented attempt to undermine the central bank's independence. In a joint statement, former chairs Alan Greenspan, Ben Bernanke, Janet Yellen, and along with others have warned that similar prosecutorial attacks in other countries have led to higher inflation and economic instability. They said such actions have no place in the United States, arguing that respect for the rule of law and an independent central bank are core to America's economic success. Now, criticism has also mounted from economists and lawmakers who say that the investigation risks further eroding confidence in U.S. institutions. Goldman Sachs chief economist said that the move has heightened investor fears about political pressure on the Federal Reserve, helping to push the dollar lower and gold to a new record high. Economists have also warned the probe could deepen long-term concerns about institutional independence. Senator Elizabeth Warren has accused President Trump of abusing the law and urged colleagues to block his next Fed nomination. However, Trump said that he had no knowledge of the Justice Department's investigation into the Fed. He also criticized the Fed chair, saying that Powell has, quote-unquote, hurt a lot of people. And what he further added was that he thinks the public is pressuring him. Trump also blamed Powell once again for keeping interest rates too high. Well, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has also defended President Trump in a media briefing. Here's what she said.
Did the president ever direct DOJ officials to open an investigation into Powell?
No.
And can you reassure the American public that his longstanding criticisms and public comments about Powell had nothing to do with the investigation?
Look, the president has every right to criticize the Fed chair. He has a First Amendment right, just like all of you do. And one thing for sure, the president's made it quite clear, is Jerome Powell is bad at his job. As for whether or not Jerome Powell is a criminal, that's an answer the Department of Justice is going to have to find out, and it looks like they intend to find that out.
To give us more details, our correspondent Susan Tenani sent us this report from New York. Listen in.
Federal prosecutors in Washington have opened a criminal inquiry into Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, focusing on whether he misled Congress about the Federal Reserve's $2.5 billion renovation of its headquarters. Now, the investigation was approved by a U.S. attorney and also involves a grand jury subpoena that threatened a criminal indictment. Powell has publicly framed this step as being, quote unquote, politically driven, a pretext by the Trump administration to punish the Fed for resisting pressure to cut interest rates and insists that the Fed has been transparent all along. Now, Powell's current term as a Fed chair ends in May of 2026, though he could remain on the Fed's Board of Governors until 2028. The move has drawn criticism from former Fed officials and some lawmakers as well, who say that all of this threatens the Fed's long-standing independence. The Justice Department says it won't let the Fed abuse American tax dollars. No charges have been filed as of yet, but markets have already reacted with volatility. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.